I recently started to upgrade to CATS 3 from CATS 2, and I started using it, and I learned a number of things during this process. I would like to share with you guys a couple of key points that I identified. I created a little demo application using Http4s. So this is gonna just demo the client side of Http4s. Here's the demo application. What it does is, okay, let's run it. It's boom boom. What it does is it goes out on the internet. It picks a PDF file. I went to the IRS and I picked the 1040 instruction set. I hope this is not going to depress anybody, but it just seems like it's always going to be there because they're always going to be taxes, so you guys always going to be able to run this sample code. And so the first step is download. It downloads this file. The second step, so now it's going to have a byte array of this file. Second step is going to write it in the local file system, and the third is going to be, it's going to run a Unix command, which is just PDF to Kaido, which is part of the popular Unix image utility set. It's on every Linux system. You can install it with Brew on the Mac. We just convert it to a JPEG. So it's a three-step process, and it's going to demonstrate how HTTP4s works in CATS 3, as well as how other effects work, such as delay. Delays is dealing with one kind of effect that you can use for running a process. It's also using another thing. If you don't pass any arguments, it's using IO print line, which is yet another side effect that it's running in this kind of safe way using the IO monad. So this is the application. So let me first explain what happens in this application, because one of those, I guess some of you guys used CATS a lot, some of you didn't, but the key point here is that everything, so this for comprehension is the heart of an effectful program. And what happens is the way you're protected from side effects, and the reason why these are not really side effects in a functional program is that the side effects are not directly observable from the host application, because the host application just creates a description of what's supposed to happen. So when you set this up, downloading a file, copying a certain place, and running the Unix program, what you're really just doing is creating a description of what you want to do, and then the IO app will, the runtime it's using, it's going to use the IO monad to run this description. And so that's kind of how an effectful program works, and that's kind of the heart of it, and that's kind of the foundation of it. And the heart of it is this for comprehension, and the way it works, one way to look at it is on the right side you have the operations run from the IO monad. So first you run the download, so you take a URL, and you download the file, and so that's the first step. That's an IO operation, and that's an effectful operation. The second is you take the result, which is an array. So as you guys can see on the left side, you have an array. This is not an IO monad, because the for comprehension, these are flat maps, right? They always unpack the monad. On the right side, you have the monad, the IO monad. If I go into effect, you guys can see that it's returning a monad, right? But when you do a flat map, it unpacks it. It's similar to how, for example, when you're working with options, it's very similar to that. On the right side, you always have what's producing a monad, an option, and on the left side, you always have the unpacked value in it. And so it's kind of like for comparison, it shows you the steps of what's happening inside your monad. So the second step is taking that array, and again, I'm doing another operation using the IO monad, this time using the delay operation. And the delay operation allows me to run a side effect that I know might take a while, but again, it is just a description. It's not going to run it right away. And the third one is running a process, right? It's running the Unix process that I was referring to earlier. It's going to run PDF to Cairo to create a JPEG out of the PDF. And if I go into my function here, again, you guys can see that that I'm returning a monad, because on the right side we are producing monads, right? And I'm using the delay operation again, because that's one of the operations I can use with running a process. Okay, so that's the anatomy of the application, and that's kind of how CATS applications tend to work. And now just a few key points that I came up with while I was switching up to CATS 3. One of them is, so let's go down. I compiled a list of these. One of the things is versions. Make sure you use Java SDK 17 or higher for CATS 3 and a modern Scala, because the compiler produced errors for me, and I actually got error messages from IntelliJ to make sure I use at least Java SDK 17. Use CATS 3.5.2 at least, and in terms of some of the other versions here, use Scala test version. Let's delete this here. This doesn't actually, I haven't verified that yet, but the other thing is Http4s version is 0.23.24. So these are the versions you want to use. In terms of which server environment you want to use, I have been using Blaze with CATS 2. I recommend that you guys use Ember, just because I ran into problems with Blaze. It doesn't seem to keep up with the version numbers as well, whereas Ember does. So Ember I was able to get to work right away, whereas Blaze I wasn't. So maybe I was doing something wrong, but I had much more of a smooth sailing with Ember. Okay, so about effects. So what is the big deal about the IO monad? For those of you guys who wonder what the big story here is that the reason why we have the IO monad is that effects are not really side effects in a pure functional program. Our program remains pure functional because it just generates a description, and it doesn't actually directly observe the side effects, because every operation in an effectful program returns a monad that protects us from that side effect, and our FP program just has a value, and that value is the description of what's supposed to happen. One way to understand this is I'm sure you guys have produced SQL scripts from your application. I think it's very similar to that. You just produce a description of what's supposed to happen in the database, and then at one point you will run it, but it is not directly producing the result into your application. You can you can manage it in some very controlled ways, but basically the idea, the reason why your FP program remains an FP program is that you're always dealing with an immutable value, and the immutable value is the description of what's supposed to happen. And the reason why this is important is because FP programs, so a pure functional program, is supposed to retain referential transparency. And if the effect was directly observable in the host application, that would not be the case, because depending how that process runs, the result might be different. But referential transparency requires that we should be able to replace the whatever computation is supposed to happen with the result and get the same outcome from our FP program. So that's what would be ruined if the side effects would be directly observable, and that's what the IO monad is protecting us from. Another couple of examples. So I mentioned SQL, generating SQL scripts. I think it's a similar concept. Another thing is how Akka, for instance, Akka Stream sets up the streams, the combinators, but that doesn't run anything yet. You just set up the runways. It's kind of like building. You have sources and you have flows and you have sinks, and you just set up what can happen in that network of combinators and flow and flows. It's kind of like on a circuit board, you put a diode and a transistor, you set up what can happen, and then you turn on the electricity and things start happening on that network. It's a very similar concept. You just describe what happens, and it's a separate thing to turn it on and run things on it. The way you know in CATS effects, and this was the same in CATS 2 and 3, is the way you know is if you're in the safe world of FP or you're actually directly observing side effects, is that when you run a method that starts with unsafe, you're running a method that is producing side effects. You're directly observing the result. That's why you should never run them in a production application. So you should use like what I'm doing here. I'm producing IO monads, and I'm letting IOApp using the runtime, the IO runtime, to execute my unsafe operations and wrap them in the IO monads. So I'm always safe and protected in the pure functional side of things. And then other things, for comprehensions are a great way to model the processing of CATS effects app. So I've seen that in CATS 2, a lot of the examples and everything I've seen was using for comprehensions. But when you guys look at the tutorial for CATS 3, for some reason they're not doing that. They're using flat maps. I recommend that you convert them into for comprehensions, just because it's much more readable and it's much more clear what's happening. But these are really flat maps, so that's why things on the right side that are monads producing the IO monad, and the left side is what's inside the IO monad. That's happening because it's a flat map, because IO monad has a flat map, and it's just like options and any other monad or try or futures in Scala. It works the same way. It unpacks, and you see on the left side what's inside them. I will continue making more of a detailed exploration of each method and each type class. Each of these monads can work with different kinds of type classes, and what it does then, you have to have those type classes in the environment, and it basically uses them implicitly, and those add capabilities, things like synchronous, asynchronous capability, logging capability, and other capabilities like that. I'm going to go through all the type classes, but I thought this would be a good way to start, and also a good way to kind of sum up what are the version requirements for CATS 3. Hope you guys found this helpful, and watch out for more videos about the details of each of the methods of the Cats3 environment and the HTTP4s environment. As always, I'm gonna put out the coding samples onto Patreon, where you guys can download it from. And if you guys found this helpful, please subscribe. Thank you. Bye bye.